last name Y-A-N-G, Yang. I am the TEDxTurtleRock licensee and creator for this event. So now, let's welcome our first speaker, Teravainen. He is going to share ideas on how to unchain the financial behaviors of veterans. Let's welcome.
Changing behaviors can be tough, especially our personal financial behaviors. And most Americans will tell you they wish they saved more and spent less. So why don't they? 3 out of 5 Americans spend their entire paycheck or more each month. Half of all Americans cannot come up with $400 to combat an unplanned emergency. Now, unprepared for the inevitable crisis, families can get crushed under the stress and circumstances that can ultimately lead to the loss of a basic necessity. And when this happens, families and children suffer irreparably at a staggering cost to our communities. So what is it going to take for Americans to change their spending and saving behaviors? Now, I think we can do it with a combination of knowledge, skills, and behaviors in personal finance, combined with specialized counseling to manage people through the process. From what I've seen, people understand where they need to go, what they need to do. They can't figure out how to get their financial situation together and over this chasm of the unknown, just to get to the starting point of a solid financial plan. I believe we can change our financial behaviors, and I believe we do not need to live paycheck by paycheck with no financial cushion. Let's think about how much happier our lives and our kids' lives could be if we parents could break this paycheck to paycheck cycle. Think about how much more happiness and productive time we would have in our lives. Now, believe it or not, my passion is not for personal finance. It's for military families. I was raised in a military family. I'm a Navy veteran, and I've spent the last 9 years working with military families. And in that time, I've learned a few things. I learned that each year, 200,000 women and men join our military. They're 18 to 24 years old, and they're a pretty decent cross-section of America, coming from every class, demographic, and state. I learned that military families have some unique financial troubles that stem from moving their homes every 2 years, being deployed more than a third of the time, and half of them are earning less than a low-income wage. I learned that our military families have to have their full concentration and focus when they're performing their jobs. Our military is the 3rd most deadly occupation in this country, and over the last 30 years, more people have died from work-related accidents than any other reason, which includes combat. Personal financial crisis cannot be allowed to distract the military work environment. So as I was learning all this, that our military is made up of average American families with average spending behaviors, that we put additional financial stresses on them, and then require their full focus and no distraction. I started to feel like we're setting them up for failure. I became more increasingly driven to act. I began to realize that at a bare minimum, 12,000 military families each year would lose a basic necessity due to a financial crisis. That is 231 each week, and it doesn't need to be that way. So in my youth, I walked in their boots, and in my adulthood, I learned to solve problems. And I started to think it was time to put the two together. So I worked to create a nonprofit agency to focus on the problem of helping young military families that are regularly in a financial crisis, a program that is now 90% effective in changing financial behaviors permanently. Now, in order to do this, we had to think about the problem differently. This is not merely an education problem. Military families have plenty of access to financial education. This is not an intellectual capacity issue. They taught me to run a nuclear reactor, but I still had money problems. This is like smoking, or not exercising, or any other chronic self-destructive behavior we have. So that's how we looked at it, as a behavior change problem. And then I worked to employ two separate avenues of thought. I used a social work approach and brought in from that a short-term intervention. And then we used a business approach. We're going to use a change management process. Now, knowing that we could not lower the cost of living or raise military incomes, we decided to provide counseling to empower families to manage their finances so they can thrive. And then we're going to back that up with a financial grant, if necessary, to retain those basic needs. We really wanted to truly teach these families to fish, and then give them a fish if they needed it as well. Now, from the social work approach, we use a solution-focused approach, crisis theory, a strengths perspective, and a family preservation model in a client-driven goal-setting environment. Our counselors are professional social workers that are also certified in financial counseling, and they are given the time to perform the one-on-one counseling with each family that comes to them in crisis. And when I say crisis, I'm talking about imminent loss of a basic necessity. Families that come to us have a piece of paper that says they're going to lose their house, their car, their utilities. This is where the program starts. So in the solution-focused approach, the client family stays in that driver's seat, while the counselor listens without judging, educates, advises, and guides them through the process of achieving financial self-sufficiency. And they do that in a safe, protected, guided environment. If the family is not ready to move ahead, if they want to resist the change and they're not ready to commit, then the counseling is going to go on pause. The counselor cannot go ahead of the family and pull them. The counselor will only go with the family. So in the end, each family has created for themselves a working budget, which starts in their unique financial situation, and it runs through a full debt reduction plan, which takes them to the goals that they want to achieve. Half the time, families can make it from here on their own. The other half of the time, we'll supply a financial grant to make sure those basic necessities are not lost while they're getting their financial feet back on the ground. Now, from the business approach, we're going to use a change management process. In John Cotter's book, Leading Change, he breaks this down into 8 steps. Now watch how these two approaches, the business approach and that social work approach, complement each other. So the first step to change is your sense of urgency. What's your reason to change? What's your burning platform? Why do you want to change? Nobody can change your behaviors except you. You have to be ready to change. We had a sailor come into our office one evening, and it was right around 5 o'clock, so the sun was setting behind him as he came through our door. He's this huge silhouette, like a linebacker in camouflage. And as if scripted, a 5'0" social worker bounded up to him and said, "How can I help you?" Watch this guy as he removed his cover, and he literally just shrank in front of her as he said, "I don't have enough food to feed my kids tonight. They said you could help me." If you listen to what he actually said, he said, "I can't do this on my own anymore. I need your help. I cannot continue this same way." He didn't want to be in that position today or ever again, and he was ready to change, and we were there to help him. Step 2 is create a guiding coalition. Why not let us put the best person on your team possible? Why not let us put somebody that's educated and skilled in helping people change behaviors, helping people manage the crisis, and helping people manage their finances. Then you're going to set your vision. You're going to figure out where you want your financial future to be. You're not going to achieve what I want you to achieve or what your social worker wants you to achieve. It's what you want to achieve in your life. And the next step is to communicate this. That's what we're going to work with empowerment and accountability. You're going to get your kids, your spouse, your coworkers, your supervisor involved. You're going to share the value of the program to you with them. And then you're going to shout it from the rooftops, I'm going to be debt-free in 34 months. And then you get to work doing some actions. You're going to create a paycheck-by-paycheck budget. It's going to take you from here to where you're out of debt. And you're going to do that again with your social worker in a safe, guided, protected environment. And you're going to start to do those actions. And they're going to start to turn into small wins. And you're going to celebrate those wins. Maybe you just paid off that first small credit card. Maybe you just hit your food budget for the first month. Maybe you went a whole pay period without overdrawing your account. And as you get those small wins together, they're going to start to turn into big wins. Maybe you get that high interest loan finally paid off. Maybe you sock away a month's worth of rent into your savings account. And then lastly, you want to anchor or institutionalize these behaviors. You're going to set up some guardrails with your counselor. They're going to help you protect what you've built so it can become part of your life. That's how real change is made. Now, we've managed this process with more than 4,500 families, and we've granted $1.5 million to keep their needs or restore their needs. And 10 out of 10 of the families who went through that program kept their basic needs. And 9 out of 10 of the families who went through the program are working towards their goals for years after. And 9 out of 10 of the families do not return for additional financial assistance. They become self-sufficient. This program works, and it works with our military families because it's built to their unique lifestyles. But I believe it can be customized to other unique lifestyles, and it can be effective in other environments. Because our spending and saving is driven by our behaviors, and this is where the program works, in changing behaviors. I recently sat with a military spouse, a Navy spouse, and she came in our office. And she had her 3-year-old daughter and her 3-month-old child. She explained to me that her car, her last car, her only car, was going to be repossessed tomorrow. And that today, her landlord had just begun the eviction process on her. At that very moment we were speaking, her husband was thousands of miles away, operating a Navy ship, sitting in a chair like that. And he had to sit there for another 90 minutes until his shift was over. And then, from the other side of the world, he was going to try to help her keep the car and stop that eviction. Now, do you really think he was paying attention to his job? We were able to help this woman. Our social workers helped her keep her car and her house. But more importantly, they helped teach her the knowledge and helped her develop the skills so she could change her behaviors and create a path to a lifetime of financial self-sufficiency for her family. And this can be the story for so many more families out there. If somebody's ready to do the hard work and they're ready to change, then I see no reason we cannot help them change their financial behaviors permanently. Thank you.